Okay, public comment? Yes, Nancy.
Nancy Ambrose, I'm a teacher at the high school and a past parent, community member, taxpayer. And again, I would just like to stress my frustration that negotiations is still going on and that we didn't get very far last week.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Steve Orzek. You know many of me. I'm the president of the Addison Northwest Teachers Association. I'm also a school board member on the school board in Middlebury, where we reached an agreement with our teachers last week. So I'd like to read a prepared statement for you. Good evening. As you know, our negotiators met with the board's team last week. We came to the session with only one goal: reach a settlement that is right for our schools, our communities, our fellow educators, and our students. When we began, we were shocked to learn that your team was not interested in negotiating health insurance costs or salary. The reason given was the governor's then pending proposal to intrude on the negotiations between local school boards and local educators. Wasting taxpayer dollars by having the board's attorney present and asking for a mediator, the board representatives showed little evidence of utilizing the mediator to resolve the articles still on the table. Instead, we were given a take-it-or-leave-it counterproposal. After 7 hours, it was clear that the board's negotiators weren't really interested in reaching a settlement. We urged the full board, made up of friends, neighbors, parents, and community leaders, to join us in working towards a settlement. Even with Montpelier's interference in the local bargaining, I know we can still do what we've always done: reach a fair settlement. We disagree vehemently with the views held by the Vermont School Boards Association when they claim that locally elected school board members aren't capable of negotiating with local educators. We know all of them, all of you, and we know how to talk to us until we reach a settlement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Wait, I'm sorry, could you just clarify what hat you had on? Because you listed a bunch of hats. Which hat did you have on when you read that?
I had on the hat of the board president and as a fellow board member. I mean, as the association president and as a fellow board member.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a wellness presentation tonight.
So I'd like to introduce Lynn Rappaport. Where is Lynn? There she is. As you know, Lynn is our, sorry, thank you, Lynn. Lynn is responsible for overseeing the implementation of our wellness policy, which requires that she wears a number of hats and manages a number of grants. There really isn't anyone else in our system that does the scope of work that Lynn does, and I want to tell you that we benefit greatly from her leadership and from her involvement, and I think you'll learn a lot about what we have accomplished from Lynn this evening. So thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for having me. So I have been in this position for about 2 years, I think we said today. So it is a lot of different hats that I wear. It's a lot. So thanks for having me tonight. Martha's going to be my flipper tonight. So my goal tonight is really to give you kind of an overview, really a 30,000 foot view of the wellness policy. And I am giving you the snapshot like Mount Everest. This is actually a picture on Mount Everest because I feel like our wellness policy is very reflective of Mount Everest. Lots of peaks and valleys. Team approach is the best. Relying on the experts, all of these kind of play out also when I'm dealing with the wellness policy and our team is dealing with the wellness policy. Why have a wellness policy? Each school that participates in the National Breakfast and Lunch Program actually is required to have a wellness policy. It's a written document that guides a school district's effort to establish a school environment that promotes students' health, well-being, and ability to learn. Local wellness policy is an important tool in promoting student wellness, preventing and reducing childhood obesity, and providing assurance that school meals, nutrition guidelines meet the minimum federal school meal standards. Our wellness policy definitely meets all of those and goes above and beyond. This is just a snapshot of all of the folks within our schools that participate, our key stakeholders participate in some form or another of the wellness policy. Nurses, school counselors, parents, individual students, student groups, all of these people have played an instrumental role in the way our wellness policy has been shaped and the way that we deal with the things that we need to. I really want to point out to the student groups here. There's 4 student groups that are represented here, and they play a big role in not only looking at our data that we have, but also being instrumental in doing the programs and the projects within the school that really bring prevention close to the kids. Our wellness policy mission statement. This was drafted and adopted in 2012 when our wellness team at the time was charged with looking at the current wellness policy and given the task to bring up different areas that we wanted to address, or maybe that we were addressing that we wanted to establish. Let's see here. The Wellness Committee was given the task to revisit the wellness policy and make suggestions. In 2014, we adopted a new wellness policy, and that's the policy that we're talking about tonight. A month ago, on May 30th, we adopted some other changes to the wellness policy, but that hasn't been in effect, so we're not talking about those changes tonight. All right. This slide here shows on the left-hand side, it shows the current policy that we are working under. On the right, or on the left-hand side, I'm sorry, the right-hand side show, when you're looking at it, right-hand side is the current policy. The left-hand side was the previous policy. Previous policy in 2013 and previous really only hit on the topics of the purpose, the policy statement, nutrition education, physical education, and nutrition services, and then the implementation. In 2014, the coordinated school health model was adopted, and that gave a more rounded view of all of the different parts and pieces. There were eight section or 8 topics that additionally added the health services, school environment, family involvement, social emotional, staff wellness, and then a section on definitions to help people go through that policy more clearly. When the policy was adopted in 2014, we came up with a 4-year implementation plan. We're technically, this year that just passed was year 3. You can not see very good because of the lighting, but the red check marks are the things that we have hit and have accomplished. Some of the items that were earmarked for year 3 have been bumped to next year with the new changes of the policy. We ran out of time this year to address that, and going forward, we'll be really looking at those topics. Yes.
Sorry, just on that last slide, on the first year it says determine health curriculum K through 6.
Yep.
Is that because the 7 through 12 is already determined, or?
No, it's a work in progress.
Okay, cool.
So, questioning, are we improving children's nutrition, physical activity, and overall health and well-being? How can we tell? We first need to look at some data. Some of the data that we looked at this year were data from the Child Nutrition Program, things like our participation rates, our free and reduced numbers, expenses of a la carte items, all of those different things. Youth Risk Behavior Survey, that was used to monitor health risk behaviors that contribute to leading causes of death, disease, injury, social problems among our youth. Behaviors such as physical activity, nutrition, weight status, tobacco use, alcohol and other drug use, and sexual behaviors. Social emotional data, we did a pilot study this year, grades 5th through 8th, looking at the SABRS and My SABRS data, which is reports, is a survey, and the reports provide information on whether individual students are at risk for academic, social, and or emotional behavior. When those screeners are used, students across, they can be either individually or across a class or a grade level. And that can provide school-wide intervention and support for those things. And then behavioral, our Swiss data, which offers us reliable, confidential, web-based information. It's a collection that summarizes the use of behavioral data so that we can make proper decisions. So it's a behavioral tool or a behavioral assessment tool. So what kind of work did we do this year? The health curriculum was a big one. This was our second year of implementation for grades K through 6. About 80% of the lessons across the district were taught this year, which was an incredible amount. The lessons that they have are a lot. It was a lot to put on teachers. They are managing it nicely. They're fitting it into their schedule with little time allocated for that. So it's been a good accomplishment. Our school gardens, all 4 of our schools have a school garden. They are workable at different times of the year. Some are pretty much year-round, and some are summer run only through the Fusion or the summer school programs. All of them provide food right directly back to the food service program, right back to the child nutrition program. They also really provide a connection for kids on food sustainability, a social emotional piece. It's just amazing to see the kids out there getting their hands in the soil, concentrating on different things other than the textbooks, even though those are also very important. The taste tests. All three of our elementary schools have a fresh fruit and vegetable grant that they offer to all the students in the school, anywhere from 1 to 3 days a week. This is an incredible program that helps fight against childhood obesity, but also allows our students to experience fruits and vegetables that they would never be able to at home for a number of different reasons. Staff wellness was a huge focus this year. We really have tried to bring a team together district-wide. We have representatives in each building. We offered different classes this year to staff, things like mindfulness, PIO, Tai Chi, yoga, boot camp, classic stretching. A number of the buildings did 30-day challenges, and we had a Garmin program that we've run a couple years now in a row that if staff participate in certain activities and do certain things along the way, they can be eligible for a free Garmin, which is an incredible tool to use when you're managing your health and well-being. PBIS, which is Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. We're doing a lot of work this year around that. We have a district-wide champion who is facilitating that endeavor across the district. We have teams in each school. We just spent 2 days with over 40 staff, all represented from each building, working on their plan for next year of what PBIS will look like in their building.
Could you spell that out so that
Yeah, sorry, Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. Yep. And then the social emotional well-being of our kiddos has been a huge look at this year and going forward. We just spent an extra 2 days tag teaming onto the PBIS days to look at the social emotional well-being of our kids. The SABRS, the My SABRS, the Swiss data, the youth risk behavior, all of that was looked at, and we are trying to get a plan together of how that's going to look in the future. So a lot of really good days spent. Over 30 staff were able to attend those 2 days, and we had some wonderful trainers there. So it was great, well spent. time. This is just a visual snapshot of some of the things that we've been doing this year. The Great Body Shop is our health curriculum. That's the K through 6. PBIS is our positive behavioral intervention supports and systems. The school garden, this is a picture of the Virgins Elementary School garden, but it's also incorporating a little bit of mindfulness into that lesson. We have recycling, universal recycling happening in most of the buildings with the extra support of our maintenance and grounds head. That should hopefully take some more direction. We did a lot of work this year around ally training, how to be a supportive ally to students and staff here. We had Outright Vermont come in and do 2 specific trainings around specifically LGBTQ and how to be an inclusive community. Our MTSS supports, multi-tiered systems of supports. We're looking at academic, but also too always social emotional. Our PATH is our planned action toward health. That's our staff wellness. A picture of the taste testings. And I think that's it. Oh, water bottle fill-up stations. Almost all of our schools have water bottle fill-up stations now. We're working on Addison to get that in there too. So, all right. So some barriers and challenges. Time, always time is an issue. Communication, language barrier, communication in the sense of, are we using common language? Are the expectations the same? Support for cultural shift. Policy changes, always policy changes. Parent involvement, how can we keep parents involved? How can we get their feedback and their support? How can we educate them in all of these initiatives that we're doing? Our demographics and barriers and challenges. Monitoring, of course, the delivery of the health curriculum, like all curriculum, has definitely been challenging this year.
Can I ask you a couple questions? How is the monitoring?
For the health curriculum?
Yeah.
Quarterly snapshot right now of who's been teaching what, and then that gets given and talked to with the admin team. And there's been some glitches with the tech portion of it, so we're trying to figure that out. And we have some new data location sites that are new. Software, thank you, that we're going to be using next year. So hopefully that will be able to, the health curriculum.
And are you the one that's monitoring it? Like everything gets turned into you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that and administration.
Okay. And then regarding the policy changes, are you talking about like government changes or
Yes.
district-wide policy
Everything.
changes?
Everything.
Everybody?
Yes, everybody. Always policy changes everywhere. And I would say mostly just because of the changes. It seems like food service is always changing. Health and wellness is always changing, and I think mostly the wellness policy for me, the focus is the whole child, all those pieces, parts and pieces. So is our wellness policy reflective of everything that we want to be doing? So that's more of the changes also. But yes, all of the federal changes, yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so going forward in school year 18, we have, with our new wellness policy, I would love to have our team look at, with Joanne, a wellness policy assessment tool, kind of a checklist of the different areas in the wellness policy and how are the different schools and individuals meeting those. What kind of goals do they have? What kind of action items are coming out of that? Maybe a toolkit. A lot of schools have toolkits, a resource guide where teachers or parents can easily access, and it has lots of different information. So for example, healthy rewards or birthday celebrations at school, they have a resource that they can go to and come up with some other creative ideas other than cupcakes, if that was something that they wanted to look at. Next year, we're hoping to really look at physical education and activity and how they align with the education quality standards, the EQS. Health curriculum proficiencies we'll be looking at. The child nutrition program cooperative that just is coming into play. Lots of changes there, so we're very excited to help support that. and our health services. We would really like to define what our local services are for students and for families. So that will be a focus next year. Yeah, George.
I have a question. At one point, the district won the Pep Grant and a whole bunch of great equipment, which hopefully is still around and in use.
A lot of, yes.
So I guess I'm wondering to what extent that resource, if assuming we still have cross-country skis and snowshoes and golf clubs and all that, climbing walls. I mean, how does all that factor in?
Yep. That I can speak personally just because my kids came right from Virgins Elementary, and that gets utilized as often as possible. Robin Newton is the PE teacher there, and she specifically plans in cross-country skiing, ice skating, everything to utilize all those parts and pieces. There's a camp that uses the high ropes course during the summer, so that's trying to be utilized. We're talking about getting the staff out there to utilize that also. We do see the need for making some things more available, like the high ropes course possibly, but I would say at least for Virgins Elementary, that equipment gets used as much as possible.
We also maintain a contract to keep it safe, and we have to certify annually that our staff are trained to oversee kids and other adults use the system.
The ropes.
And Lynn, isn't it true that there are a lot of movement breaks happening in classes now because of that grant and outgrowth of that grant?
Yes, thank you for saying
The
that, Diane.
teachers are really,
Absolutely.
at least that was my experience when I was there.
Kindergarten does the ABL breaks, I want to say daily. Do they do
Well,
it?
it's actually programmed.
Three times. And yes, they have brain breaks all the time. There's lots of different opportunities for the kids to take out equipment during the school day. There's new storage sheds there that they now have the ability to store some equipment outside is able then to get utilized more readily.
There's a designated PE class at the high school or middle school and high school, the adventure.
Oh, yes,
PE
yes,
that uses
yes,
the
yes,
ropes
yes,
course.
also,
Yeah,
yep. The PE teachers definitely love showing off their equipment. And we would love to help support that, and so I think it was a really well spent amount of money. It was a lot of money, and it was well spent, and I think that most of the stuff is still being used, or at least thought about in continuing that use for sure. Other permitting. The next slide. Just keep it there.
The wellness policy assessment tool that you were referring to, where would that come from? Is that something that would be purchased? Is it something that you would develop, or that would be developed by?
Yep, I would say it would be something that would be developed by a team, a team of representatives from the wellness teams around the buildings, Joanne, of course, input from whoever. The more input, the better, especially for those that are going to be expected to do the assessment. I just wanted to be clear. There's lots of different examples to use and a lot of different incentive ideas around it, how to make it exciting and fun. I think it would be great to wait until the Child Nutrition Cooperative happens also to get that input. So I think it's going to be looked at all next year.
Sorry, what is the Child Nutrition?
That's our collaborative with Addison Northeast.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
It has a new name.
Child nutrition.
What is the new name?
Round 8.
Child Nutrition Program Cooperative, I think.
That's what I saw up there. It might get something fancy. So on closure, this is the last slide. The coordinated school health model was the model that we showed earlier with the 8 components or 8 topic areas. The CDC has just expanded that model to take the health and safe school environment and expand that into 2 sections and the family community involvement to make it, again, their own entities so that we can expand on that. So it's 10 different topics. I love that model just because the kid is in the center. We're trying to encourage those those things around. We're all encompassing the student. It's just a really great model to strive for. All right, that's all I got. Yes.
I'm curious to know how we're moving to possibly a shared food coordinator with Addison Northeast. How is she gonna slot into what you're doing when you're talking about nutrition? And
A really good
That's
question.
a really good question. She's actually going to be joining the board in August. I haven't told Sue this yet, to do a presentation on what a cooperative looks like and connecting to the other initiatives in our school district. So you'll learn more about that when she joins us.
Thanks. Fancy little stress balls too for you guys.
Yay.
We're gonna need them.
You might need those.
Thank you.
Going back to an earlier slide, I was curious what kind of participation rates by staff in the wellness programs, the Tai Chi, et cetera, was it lots of participation? Was it minimal?
Oh, that's a really good question.
I wonderful.
It was actually pretty good. The program entails that they do 4 different exercise classes. They do a fit test before and a fit test after, and they do a couple other things in there. And they get a kind of either the Garmin, or for those that already have the Garmin, they got a gift certificate for Dick's. I think there were, if a rough estimate in my head, 35 to 40 that went through that program out of our whole staff, which was an increase from last year. I would say on an average, there's probably 8 to 10 in the classes each time they're offered. They usually run anywhere from 8 to 16 weeks, once a week. There's a big section that we offer, almost once a day, an opportunity for them to get exercise.
Is it, do you see like 25 of those people are from one school and 2 or 3 from others, or is it pretty evenly spread out? Or would you prefer not to?
I think it depends on what it is.
Okay.
How intense the activity is, where the activity is held, definitely. We tried really hard this year of trying to bounce around a little bit and offer different things in each school. The high school has more space, has a lot more options. Next year, we're trying to expand that program, and we are trying to figure out maybe a punch card system and how that would work, so that people could maybe go to outlying exercise facilities instead of coming in-house. We also are entertaining the idea of offering punch card for the farmers market, different things like that. So we're always trying to think of what are the needs and how can we make the staff feel better. They just have so much, everyone has so much on their plates, right? Stress balls. So, yeah. Does that answer?
It does, thank you.
So did you give out a Garmin this year?
Did we give them out?
Yeah.
Yes, there were, I want to say 15 Garmins that were given, and I want to say 17 Dick's gift cards. So that was, or maybe it was the other way, because there was more. Last year, it was the ones that got gift cards were the ones that got Garmins last year. So I want to say that was 15 and then 17 this year. Yes.
Garmin, that's a GPS, as far as I know, right?
A Garmin, so it's like a Fitbit.
Ah, thank you.
Exercise Fitbit,
Well,
yes.
I didn't
Sorry.
think they were going to be
Yes.
giving out GPSs.
We like to track our employees.
Yes.
How are they doing at every moment of the day?
Right, right.
Right. Are you exercising? Then we give them a call. I am doing right now.
Are you doing it now? So I have a couple more questions. One is, does the current policy have an annual reporting requirement
Yes.
that you will be
think we put
coming
that
to
in
the
there.
board annually?
I believe, yes, that it is in there.
Yeah, okay. And then what are some of the roadblocks that the teachers are encountering to get their health curriculum instituted into their classrooms? Because you said
Time, and I would say the 2 things that pop up all the time are time. Health is not one of the slotted times for instruction, or they haven't it hasn't been figured out how to do that yet. So like there's a math time and there's a reading time and there's an art time and there's, in most of the schedules, but there's not a designated, okay, health will be taught on Tuesdays at, this time. They have to figure out how to fit it into their day, and some are doing it in morning meetings and some are working it into different curricula, topics. The other piece is some of the material is intense, or I should say like the drugs and the sex ed. All those are things that are not a comfort level to someone that is expected to teach math or reading. Again, that's that K through 6 age group.
So the next question is more, I guess, for Joanne, as we head through or towards this personalized learning, Act 77. It sounds like that right now the classroom days in the grade school is cut into math, reading, etc. Is the personalized learning at the grade school level, is that the intent to make it less rigid like that? Do you understand what my question is? I want all our grade school kids to learn reading, writing, and math, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic, that's really important. But so is this. And if you have really rigid expectations, like we do now, it makes it hard to fit it in. And I'm just wondering, as we go along through to adopting Act 77, is that going to be less rigid? Is that part of the thinking?
Is that part of the theme? I think the goal of Act 77 is more around providing students opportunities to explore their interests and set their goals. Again, we have to find the structures in the schools that already exist to allow that to happen. For instance, I know already there are many teachers who start the school year out building community and having kids set goals. It's following their interests based on their goals by doing things like research. We have makerspace that some of our teachers have been exploring. I know Rose is very interested in that. We have a Genus Hour in some of our elementary schools where kids spend time in small groups of kids exploring areas of interest of their topics, similar to what happens with Capstone in the middle school. Mm-hmm. And so we provide those structures of time, not in a regular schedule, but once a month or a couple of times a month in order for that to happen. So I would say that the day would become less structured because of that, but I can't tell you what that looks like right now because we're kind of creating that
we're
future.
Far from the grade school
I would say too,
implementation.
for the health curriculum, it's a big, beefy curriculum, and I think that our goal is to really look at that over time and do we need every single piece that's expected to be taught right now. I think they are covering from A to Z, and I think if we hit it a different way, that could lighten that burden also. So, not that it's less important, but there's, if there's 4 lessons and you can get to the point in 2 lessons, that's more of what we're looking at.
And curriculum coordinator. We have a curriculum coordinator.
We do.
Okay. And this would seem to me to be a job for him, her.
She works in coordination with the curriculum coordinator.
Lynn does. To help implement this health. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for them?
And not for Lynn, but I do have a question based on what you were just talking about, that some of the elementary schools are doing Genius Hour and whatever those things are. Is the goal to ensure that all those things are happening in all 3 elementary schools? Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
She wants to get her computer.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, go for it. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. All right, so Joanne, you have a update on the Chromebooks, I guess?
Yeah, I have an update on the Chromebooks. So I sent out an email with the agenda to let you know that we do have the Chromebooks. It was my interest to get them out and distributed to you this evening. However, I was reminded by my tech director that he needs to change the domain in every computer in our system. So I'm holding on to that. He's been on vacation this week. I will give you a phone call the week, what did I say in my email, the week of the 10th, to let you know if you want to come in and pick it up, that's great. If I don't see you then, I will bring it to the board's retreat on the 19th.
Everybody got that?
Our domain name is changing to SD from SU?
Correct.
Yes. I see. I wondered if that was going to happen. Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we have superintendent's report, principal's reports. Anyone have any questions?
Sue?
Yes.
I would like to make an announcement under the superintendent's report, and I'd like to invite Greg Burdick to join me.
Thank you.
Front row, please. So as some of you may be aware, at the supervisory union meeting last week, we talked to you about the potential of several of our schools ending the school year with a cash flow problem. So I would like to invite Greg to describe the plan, how we plan to address it in the next couple of days, because we're very quickly coming to the very end of the school year.
For those of you who were at the SU meeting, just bear with me. I also wear a hat as the treasurer of the high school. And when I was told 3 or 4 weeks ago there was going to be a change in the business manager chair, I was concerned because part of your merger here is that the individual schools' EIN numbers, those numbers that allow you to operate as a legal entity, they go dormant on June 30th, which means that they can't do anything like borrow, or they're not supposed to write checks. And so I was concerned from a purely cash point of view, would the high school be able to cover its expenses with the cash on hand? Because normally the silver bullet is the tax anticipation note. Schools by design, they run out of money at the end of June. The banks show up, they give you it's usually a 90-day cash flow. In this particular situation, this 1 year, that won't happen for the high school or Radisson or Ferrisburg or Virgins. That tax anticipation note is on your agenda for this evening. So it's gone from several smaller ones to 3.75. So I was concerned. I went to Joanne and I asked if I could just kind of ask the business office staff, the payroll and the AP people, give me an estimate what you think the high school is where it's going to end, and we're going to have enough. And then when I got back with Joanne, she asked me if I would do that for the other schools. Felt a little bit out of place because I'm not even your treasurer yet. So, but I went ahead and did that because of the uncertainty in the business manager's chair. And so that whole exercise indicates to us, to me, that we have one elementary school that will not have enough cash to finish the year to cover their 3 summer payrolls, and if they have some AP. We have another elementary school that is going to be right on the cusp. So the challenge that we ran into was, how do you not prevent that? What can you do? What's the mechanism so that you're not bouncing checks? And so with Joanne's encouragement, I called the auditor. I called the People's Bank, the government lending division. I actually called the State Department of Ed finance people. And the consensus of those conversations ended up being that the SD, the new SD, is going to be accepting from the individual schools that are dormant either their cash assets or their cash liabilities. Your articles of incorporation say that clearly. So the SD will be writing a check to at least one school district, and it's going to be close, on a second school district, to allow them to have cash to clear their end of year cycle. Even though your EINs are dormant, you must, the business office must keep them alive, so to speak, so that all their summer payrolls can clear, all their APs, as I mentioned. But you also must be audited. And in this particular situation, again, a little bit different, that they have to be in place to issue W-2s come the end of December. So all those challenges, Joanne actually got your new business manager involved with all of that. So on Monday, this coming Monday the 3rd, the SD is going to be writing at least one and quite possibly 2 checks to whoever needs it in order to cover them for their cash deficits. One of the things that has bothered me, if you will, and again, with the business chair turmoil, we have been clearly told that if one of your old school districts decides that it wants to cut a check or do something of that vein on July 1st, that drives a whole nother set of audits. So we don't have financing built into your budget. You have financing for this audit, but we don't have that. So again, we're trying to get in place the fact that nothing happens. So Joanne and I and the business office and the new business manager, we're trying to make sure none of that happens. So I kind of stepped out there, but I don't know, maybe it was self-serving because I didn't want to create a mess for myself, and I didn't want to just sit back and let a mess happen again. So it's just something that it's a one-time thing. I told Joanne when I met with her, and I said, geez, who would have thought? I didn't. That it will never happen again, so to speak. But the SD is a borrower now. You have a tax anticipation note. You're going to be lending your old district's money. Now, we're not going to get real cute. It's my understanding that we're not talking a large amount of money. The one school district that we're dealing with is in the $35,000 range. We may not cut that real short. We may just write them a $40,000 check. Just so that if there's anything out there, you don't, in a cash environment, if you miss by $1, that causes problems. And then the reverse, the question was asked at the SU, what's the process for not generating any activity in the dormant school districts and getting your money back? And that, the answer to that has turned out to be it's a cash transfer. The bank will transfer, probably on my request, from the dormant cash accounts to the SD cash accounts. So that is all transpired in the last couple of weeks, and it was a great call having the new business manager involved. She knows what we're doing. She pretty much agrees. I hope she pretty much agrees with what we're doing, and she's aware of it. So on Monday morning, first thing, we're going to be writing a check and taking it to the bank. So Joanne asked me to come explain that. So if you have any questions, I'll take them tomorrow. Sorry.
I'm a little bit unclear why if the district goes out of existence or goes dormant on Friday night, whenever it is, why can't those checks that they owe just be written out of the district office?
Okay, so the difference in my world of cash and the question that you're asking is that the school districts do modified accrual accounting. In other words, they're writing paychecks, 2 in July and 1 in, and they're actually being posted pre-6/30, so that when we do an audit, there's nothing missing out there. You have revenues you're owed. The biggest one that comes to mind is your fourth quarter SPED reimbursement. That's liable not to show up, I don't know, mid-August, somewhere around in there so that money goes back. If you have any miscellaneous revenue, there used to be transportation reimbursements. I don't know if those are still out. Did they do away with those? Are they they're still there? So that's a piece, a little bit of food revenue. So those activities that may happen in July and August are accrued back into the prior year.
This is just normal fiscal year problems, but because if one set's disappearing, it can't
Hopefully
be dealt
we
with.
won't ever have to have this discussion again. Hopefully.
So, you're going to write a check on Monday,
You're going to write a check. I'm going to sign it.
okay?
Sorry.
From the district's newly found anticipation note to the school district that has the cash problem. But in order to not generate an audit, they have to have written their checks by this Friday.
That is correct. So, we are hopeful that that will happen. Joanne, has taken steps to try to make sure that the purchasing is done. I'm very confident that the payroll checks, even though they're dated correctly, they're posted correctly. So the in and the out of the cash account is not going to trigger an audit. However, in speaking with the auditors yesterday, or maybe it was Friday, I was concerned. I actually was seeking the question, how do we get our money back? After we write that 40,000 and we only spent 35, how do we get it back? And so when I was talking with him, I was concerned about additional audits, because that could be a lot of money. And he commented to me, he said that when we get there, and we are actually doing an audit of the SD, so this is next year, he is already planned to do little mini cursory audits to verify the cash that's in the bank. So we're not going to move that cash that's resident anywhere until he's done with his audit. And he is planning for that in the fee that he's already given you for the SD audit. So we're not going to trigger a full one, but he's got to go back and cash verify the residual amount of money that's there.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more question. We are paying for audits because we do that every year. When you say trigger an audit, audits can be really big or they can be really small. What is the scope of the audit that would be triggered if things weren't done? I mean, would we be looking at an audit of, you're using language that, you're using kind of a tone that sounds to me like audit apocalypse, rather than kind of just like the thing what you just said, which is just a tiny little audit of a couple of transactions that has to be done.
I got the distinct impression talking with the auditors that if we were to go active with our checkbook,
Right.
he would do his normal audit. Now, there isn't going to be 1/100th of the activity for him to look at. I can't truly answer what he would send you for a bill. He seems like a reasonable guy, but auditors, he's a good guy. I speak in terms of having been burned with those kind of, when they show up, and so maybe I am doom and gloom, but it probably wouldn't be a full, I'm not 100% sure what you're paying for all your audits now. Would it be like, let's say you paid $15,000 to have for Jen's elementary school? Would it be 15? Probably wouldn't, but it might be 6 or 7 that you don't have.
If the checks will have to be written by the end of this month,
Wouldn't presumably then we know what the total would be in order to write the check on the 1st?
We are reasonably comfortable that we have that. And I say reasonably comfortable because there is always the chance that something may have gotten ordered or paid for, or somebody bought something that didn't go through the purchase order system that may show up second week of July. Now, I believe that Joanne has taken a position that at some point in time there's going to be a drop-dead date, and if it happens after that, it goes in this year. Has to be, I mean, Joanne and I have talked about that, but can 100% guarantee, because we have some credit cards, they're all going dormant on the 30th because we're changing credit cards. Chance, small, we hope nothing happens. But the checks that we know are going out, the payroll ones, the payroll taxes, and all the rest of that, we are out there. Again, the mystery is, can we estimate, well, actually there was 2 mysteries, we got one solved. One mystery was, what is the fourth quarter revenue going to be? Because that fourth quarter revenue goes against this 35,000 that I'm talking about. Because your payrolls will be much higher than 35. The other mystery was whether or not there are any due tos, due froms. So does somebody in the district or the district owe an individual school district money back for services charged and not delivered? And that was given to us midweek. So there's money that's coming back from the SU that Tanya did the sheet, and she did it in a nice, timely fashion. So we have, that was the other piece that we didn't know. Normally that bill back won't appear until August, but the business office has been very good about accommodating some questions, and Joanne and I have tried to stay on top of it without getting in their way, and we hope we've got it all tied up, but can't guarantee 100%. But again, your new business manager is not new, and I think she's going to hit the ground running because we've prepped her.
We have.
So
Anyway.
so people are going to get they're going to get W-2 forms from their old school district, and then they'll get another one from the SD
That
July
is
1st
correct.
on.
That is correct.
Oof,
This one time.
this one time.
We might remind them of that, and by we, I mean you, that this is happening. A couple reminders is always helpful.
I think they have been very well informed. Would you agree?
Yes,
meaning the
because
staff? Yes.
the software conversion falls right into this ominous, dark 48-hour period as well. So I think in preparation for that conversion, that the payroll office has communicated with them. You know, things are changed. You know, do another, a new statement. They all had to have new statements. I can't guarantee that I was in there, but I gotta believe.
Yes.
Because we've talked about it, so we can check. They.
I can assure you that has happened.
Well, I mean, just, it's always handy in, the end of January, early February, when people are starting to do their taxes.
Right.
The reminder that they've got 2 W-2s instead of.
So as a matter of moving it along, this reminds me of the conversations around Y2K and that disaster that was impending. And so it sounds to me like you've helped us avoid some of those things. So thank you for that work.
Larry, did you have a question? Did anyone over here have a question?
Yeah, I have a quick
Go ahead,
question, too.
you go first.
So I just wanted to clarify, you said that if there's any residual money left, it's going to stay there for the whole entire year until the audit happens a year from now. Is that what you said?
It's gotta stay there.
Okay.
Whether or not when he comes and does this audit, he wants us to leave it, that's a decision that your new business manager and the superintendent, he will touch on it because he knows about this. And it's funny because when I talked to the State Department of Education, there have been 9 conversions, 9 consolidations.
Consolidations.
Not a single school closing has had a lack of funds. Found that interesting.
With the exception of us.
No,
That they-
I think it's designed to be 0, and that's so hard to manage. Extremely hard to manage, but thank you. And when you all started thanking me after I agreed to run in March, thank you very much. Thank you. I just thought it was just you being very nice. Little did I know.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much. You definitely have gone above and beyond.
Yes, you have.
Don't forget, we still have an open invoice of mine to talk about, if you remember.
Yeah, Larry.
The conversation, this is not a question related directly, but the conversation made me aware that we have not been given a detailed budget. We have an overall budget, which we approved, but we haven't been given a detail. Because I was thinking to myself, I could just look through the detailed budget and find the audit cost that is in our, but we don't have it. So could you facilitate that maybe for the?
It's actually online. Remember, I put it
The
on the website.
detailed budget
A
is?
detailed budget, yes. It is
Okay.
online. We posted that for people in the community who wanted to see more detail back in February or March.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you. Anything else on the rest of the superintendent's report? Did you want to comment on anything else, Joanne, or questions?
Did you include the principals as well, or
And
is
the
this just the
principals, sure.
superintendent?
Sure.
Yeah, the whole
Fair
thing.
game.
The whole thing, what the heck. I'm sorry, should I go ahead, keep going? So I wanted to say, Mark, you got a shout out in the Virgins Union Elementary. What you did for that pool is incredible, and thank you very much. I'm sure it was a lot of time.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, good. But thank you for doing it. The other thing I wanted to know is, what is a maker movement?
Makerspace.
Well,
So I
Matt
was
says
talk-
maker movement, so.
Right, so I was speaking before about ways in which we might personalize learning for students. And there's a model of where you create a space in the school where kids can come and explore areas of interest and do some research and make and actually create things that they're interested in. It's usually has technology involved with it. There's a teacher that can facilitate, but it really gives kids an opportunity to explore areas that they want to learn more about.
So it's kind of like a program, it sounds like.
It's a space. It's actually a space
Literally,
that you
physically a space.
physically a space that you set up for kids to be able to finish projects independently, to do research, to create products that represent their areas of interest.
Cool. Excuse me. Can I keep going? I have more.
You have the floor.
Last meeting, I had asked that the principals maybe include their enrollment information on their reports, and I just wondered if Beth doesn't have it, and I just wondered if we might have that.
Sure.
Or maybe we could have it on next one.
I could actually send it separately.
All right. I just think it's a really good idea for us to be aware of our enrollment, since
I think Virgins Elementary has their enrollment figure, but it's not by grade.
if you,
I saw it at the end of Matt's report.
Yes,
so
I
that
saw
would be
it.
helpful if it was a table, the way Travis did his.
okay. That's a great idea, actually. And then I wanted to know if, this is Travis's report, that they're looking to implement LIFT?
Yes.
And is that going to go in all the schools?
He's actually going, it possibly could. He's going to pilot LIFT in grades 5 and 6 next year, and report out to the principals. We'll be monitoring the effects of that program and determine whether that's something we want to do in all of our elementary schools.
Would you mind passing something on to him? And I don't know what, I would appreciate a little bit more detail on his, at the very beginning of the year, sorry, I'm starting too many sentences, but at the very beginning of the year, he said he wants his teachers to learn how to integrate technology into their classrooms in a more effective manner. And he reports that that is continuing, but there's not a lot of detail, and I just wondered if maybe we could have a little bit more detail. And I think that was it. That was it. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So Ferrisburg under supervisory, second sentence is "we have."
Is what?
We have. I'm not sure if Beth would want to continue her thought process or where it got lost, but I don't know if there was more to say that she wanted to share or not.
All right, I saw that.
She was just oh, I see that, yes.
Are
I
we
mean,
close to
my
our
guess is
grade
that they
teacher?
have a template that they carry over from one month to
I
another.
think she probably was cutting and pasting, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming a sentence got cut, so I don't know if it was something she wanted to share and just did, or so just if she could be asked, or if it's just like, we have finished the year, period.
Did you have something?
Are we any closer to sixth grade?
Can I address that when we get to the action item around hires?
Do we have any claim on Certainteed Roofing settled?
We do not have that settled.
And with Stephanie's, if you were present, you left with a smile. I was present, I left with a smile. So it was a really nice graduation.
Yes, it
It
was.
was a good graduation.
That's it.
There's a special educator leaving from Ferrisburg. Is that
Yes.
a position that's going to need to be replaced, or
That
is that?
position will be replaced. They've begun the process for interviewing it as we speak.
Anyone have any other questions on those reports? No. Okay. Board committees. I'm not sure if a lot of the committees actually have updates, or I think it's been a quiet month for committees, but I can go through and see if you have anything enlightening to
Well, we
say.
attempted to meet.
Yeah, right.
Only 2 of us showed up, 3 of us showed up. And since we were planning for the coming year, we felt that we needed a larger group of people. So we are decided to suspend until September.
Okay. And I think at the retreat, there'll be a time for all the committees to sort of, remember we did the sticky note work plan thing at the retreat
Right,
last year?
so that would just be the board members then, not our, because we are a
Right.
larger, more inclusive.
So maybe you guys can just come up with a draft one and then bring it back to your group?
Well, we can talk about rolling out the vision statement.
Yeah, the plan was to do that at the beginning of the school year, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And just maybe brainstorm other ideas to bring back to your group or something? I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's what I had been hoping to do last week, but
Right.
didn't happen.
Okay. Great. Policy?
Policy committee has nothing to report.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So same perhaps at the
Yeah, I
retreat.
think we
we
need
can
to figure things out going
Yeah.
forward at the retreat.
delve into the reporting and all that. Negotiations?
We have a meeting scheduled for the 10th of July with the support staff. Things have been going really well with them, and hopefully that will continue. We met last Wednesday for a mediation session, but that was at the same time that the legislature was over there playing with things. And as a result of that, we didn't make much progress. We anticipate another mediation session, but that's being worked out by other people. We don't have any say in when that'll be.
We're waiting for dates.
Yep.
What was that?
We are waiting for dates.
From
that-
the mediator and Anta.
So that, yeah, the dates that people are available to have another mediation session.
Do we have, maybe this isn't something we can talk about in open session, but do we have any idea why Middlebury had 10 hours worth of meetings and settled? And we've had,
No, they didn't have 10 hours worth of meetings. They had a 10-hour-long mediation session.
so they had been negotiating, I misunderstood them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and their mediation was not on the same day that the state was in turmoil, basically. And, well, I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
And at our mediation, there was not agreement on, people did not want to discuss health care because it was the same exact day that the governor was, or not the governor, the legislature was debating that, so. If you can't discuss health care, you're not going to come to an agreement.
Right. It would make sense.
It would be nicer for everybody if the governor had opted to set a target and go at a later date. Trying to change everything right in the middle of things
Yeah,
was
I
a
mean,
disaster.
Budgets are passed, people are in the middle of negotiations, it's putting a wrench in the works, but it is what it
We've done this
is.
to like almost every year. Act 46, let's pass that in May and have you implement it by March.
Mm-hmm.
Very much.
Okay, so facilities, nothing's happened with facilities committee, has it?
We have nothing to report.
Okay. Finance
But we
committee?
will,
Oop, sorry,
eventually.
you will be meeting and doing things, yes. Finance?
Actually, yes. Can I ask a question? Do you have a meeting set?
We do not yet have a meeting set.
And do you have an idea of when you might have a meeting? I'm just wondering
I
what,
think we were waiting for the new person.
We were
to
waiting
come
for the
on
new
board,
person, and
first of all.
I've been on a work trip
Yeah.
for a couple weeks, so.
you have a job?
I know, no.
What the heck? You don't do this all day, every day?
So when the district is operational, they will definitely be meeting.
Yes.
I don't mean to be a pain in the ass. You're not gonna wait till September, right?
No, because, I mean, we do need to be having conversations about what's going on in the back, and we want to make sure that there's board oversight of the performance contract. So we're aware of the things that need to be paid attention to. It's just been a long month and a half.
I hear you. Finance Committee is in the process of setting up a meeting, and it looks like it's going to be third Thursday in July for right now.
Third Thursday in July?
I believe, well, actually, it's the second Thursday. I think it's going to be July 13th.
July 13th.
We're not absolutely positive, but that's what we're shooting for right now.
Daytime, evening?
4. And we will be meeting with the new business manager.
All right, excellent. Board reports. So I just wanted to report back that the superintendent's contract was updated and signed and is on file, and with an expiration of June 30th, 2018, as we agreed upon at the last meeting.
Excuse me.
That brings us to action items. So I'll take a motion for approval of minutes of the May 31st meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or remarks on the minutes? Corrections, issues? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
I think that was unanimous. Okay, we need to approve a tax anticipation note, which I do not have the amount of.
It's right here.
Oh, Mark's going to make a motion.
Move to approve the Addison Northwest School District Tax Anticipation Note Line of Credit for $3,752,000.
Second.
Say again the number, please.
3752000.
Thank you.
Was there a second? Chris, second, okay. All right, I think we're all aware of what this is for, yes? Any questions or?
What's the interest rate? Just curiosity. What does it say?
1.85
Really?
annum.
Wow. I had no idea we had such cheap money.
All in favor of approving that, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Authorization for superintendent to offer contracts.
So this evening, I have 2 names to recommend to the board. I want to tell you a little bit about the process that Matt used first. This is to fill the positions that are open at Virgins Union Elementary School. He created a committee of people with an eye for hopefully finding suitable candidates for all 3 positions, 2nd grade, 4th grade, and 6th grade. They included also a demonstration of a teaching lesson in that process. And that process resulted in forwarding 2 names to the board this evening. One is Dana Bibbs for 2nd grade, and the other is Megan Poulis for 4th grade. We still have not come to agreement about a suitable 6th grade candidate. Right after school let out, I insisted that Matt went on vacation. So when he returns next week, he will resume that search.
Okay. So we need a motion to authorize Joanne to offer contracts to Dana Bibbs and Megan Poulis.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion to approve board representative to Patricia Hannaford Career Center. This may look familiar to some of you. We did at the last meeting have this motion on our agenda, and we did actually have 2 people that were interested, and we were going to have them split it, but clarified with the Hannaford board that they need one designated person. So, but the position actually doesn't start until 2 weeks from now, so we're all good. But we do need one person, and so Christina and Lori arm wrestled. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Knock down, drag out.
Yeah. They were really
Not a wicked shiner.
Yeah. And Christina won, so no. Lori won. I mean, no.
It's all good.
So Christina has graciously offered to take on this responsibility for us for this year. So we need a motion to make sure that Christina is our designated board rep to the Career Center for this year.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Christina.
My
And
son
Lori.
had a year there. It was a good year, so.
Good.
Awesome.
And Lori will hit you up for another
Yeah.
duty, I'm sure.
Please, thanks. Okay.
All right. Okay. Motion to contract with the Vermont School Boards Association to manage a superintendent evaluation process. I can give you a little information about it first before we have the motion, probably. So I know there's been a bit of turmoil around the superintendent's evaluation and deadlines and timelines this current year, and it's been pretty difficult as far as I can remember, actually, in terms of just getting things done when they should be done and having reliable information and always tweaking the process and trying to figure out the best way to go about it. So in the process of looking through that, I discovered that the VSBA offers the service. And what they do is they would actually come here, meet with us 3 to 4 times, an initial meeting to set what our goals are, look at our past successes and failures, build on those, see what areas we really are looking for information in, and develop a really clear plan with clear expectations and clear ways that those expectations would be evaluated, so that everyone's on the same page, everyone knows what's being evaluated and how it's going to be evaluated. And then they would come back, keep us on timeline, help wrap things up, develop a draft, a final draft. And they mentioned, I talked to Harry Frank. He has been the one doing this. He's leaving the VSBA, so it would probably be Nicole Mace that would take this over for him. If we decide to go ahead with it, we could probably start the initial piece of it at the retreat next month, which would allow for enough time. Because in the contract, the evaluation needs to be completed. We moved it up to March 1st, because if the contract's being renewed April 1st, it didn't seem that the evaluation should be completed by April 1st. So we have a March 1st deadline to have that completed. Harry says that their process typically takes 3 to 4 months to work through. So what else? He mentioned that it, focuses on things like finance, leadership, governance. I mean, kind of, he would look at any job descriptions, past information to help us. They have like a framework that they work from that's actually from New York State, and then they would personalize it to address our specific needs. There is a fee involved. It's $1,000 for the whole operation, from including all of their visits and all of the management that they would offer. So that's what's available. I guess we should have a motion and then some discussion around that, and then decide where we'd like to go with that.
I will so move.
Okay, wait, what are you moving?
I'm moving that we contract with the VSBA to do the superintendent's evaluation.
To
Results
manage the
Yeah,
superintendent's evaluation.
manage it. Results to be ready for us on the 1st of March.
The process would be completed.
Yep.
Okay. So, conversation.
Well, So I would like a little bit of clarification because I know that clearly it wasn't done this year the way it was supposed to be done, but they were talking about doing a 360, so involving as much staff as possible. And I was at a VSB training by Harry Frank, and his feeling is that it's pretty impossible for a staff member who don't interact with Joanne on a regular or the superintendent on a regular basis to be able to give feedback. And I don't know how we feel about that, if that's the VSBA's feeling, if they feel that it's not appropriate to do. I kind of would want to know how much we're involved with the designing the process and how much we're using their template, and what say we have.
Right. I think we have an ultimate say, the final say, and they have a template that is a starting point, but that's what the 3 or 4 visits would be about, is how do we want to alter that? What do we really want to include or not include? Do we want to add on additional components? All of
If I
that.
may. I had a conversation with Carrie Lamb today because this was on the agenda and Tom had sent out some information to us, and so I called her and talked to her about this. And she indicated that it's something that you build together. Yes, there's a template, but you take and work on it so that you're both comfortable with what it is you're dealing with. And they've got a couple of these out there, and each one is worded differently. So, yeah, it would be what we wanted.
It's our evaluation. They're just helping us manage it.
Well, clearly we haven't, not we, but.
Well, we haven't
Yeah,
yet,
exactly.
I think, as an investment of $1,000, I think we should look at this as not just an investment for like year one. I mean, the patterns that we make this year with this evaluation are likely to last for many, many years beyond this. So bringing in a consultant to work with us to build out and help us think through what this might look like, I think is a good step for us.
Yeah, I was sort of answered my question. If that it really is the case that we're going to establish something once, then we can then move forward and not have to reinvent the wheel every year. That would be good.
Right. Yeah, that's my understanding. Tom?
So, Joanne, this is something that we could use the transition grant for. Could we use the transition grant to pay for this?
We could.
Sure.
Why not?
I don't know. I'm not managing the transition grant, so.
We have a $21 million budget now. I wouldn't be worried about $1,000.
But we do have a transition grant.
We do have the
that is also
transition grant.
We have to worry about every $1,000.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Christina.
So I guess my only thought or hesitation at this moment in time is that we're going to be going into executive session later to discuss the evaluation thus far. Is that right?
No.
Oh, what are we going?
We are going into executive to discuss a personnel matter.
Oh, okay. So
This board doesn't have an evaluation ongoing.
Okay.
So
well, I guess so. The SU
right
discussed that last week. So do we need to get a report on what the final evaluation process was and what the results are before we make a decision about how to move forward, or do you think that doesn't really factor in?
I think we need to move forward. I mean, my feeling is that we need to move forward. And I did talk to Bill, and he has said that he will share when the process is done, that we will get all of that, whatever information there is to share. But I don't think we should wait. I think that we should look forward to the March 1st deadline and backtrack from there and make sure that we're on target. That's my feeling.
Is it possible that once we've designed this, that it's something that we can use again and we don't need to use the VSBA, or do you think it's something we're going to want to use them every year?
I think it's totally possible that we may just use them 1 year and then have a tool that we can move forward with. I mean, it's also possible that we find their help extremely helpful.
Right.
And we want them again. I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. But no, I think we will end up with a process and a tool that we can definitely use moving forward.
One of the problems that we've had up to this point is not only is the form that we've been working with a little bit archaic, but it's been very difficult to work that timeline process into the meetings that we have. I think that having them there guiding us, it's going to put an emphasis on it, where instead of it got forgotten on this meeting, well, it will be an agenda item and they will be here to talk to us about it. And I truly think that once it's established, that we can travel with that, but I also can see how after maybe a 3-year stretch on our own that we may have to bring them back in to bring us back on track, because it's awful easy with something like this to drift farther and farther back, and then you get to the point where there's no way you can do the evaluation and have it done on time. And if you're going to offer a contract to a person, then you should have the evaluation complete before you start considering that, right?
Right, and I also think if you're going to do an evaluation, it should be meaningful too.
Yes.
You know, and, you know. So. Any other? Yeah.
I would just like to personally say to Joanne, I'm sorry that you didn't get your evaluation in the timely manner. I really am. Thank you, and I appreciate your patience, and I'm very, very sorry that circumstances ended up that way.
Yep, and 2 years in a row,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
and it's embarrassing, and I'm very disappointed, and I'm glad we're addressing it, so thank you.
Just so that you know, I have had 2 consecutive evaluations completed, and I expect to have a 3rd one. I understand it's not within the timelines, but it has been helpful.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all in favor of contracting with the VSBA for this service, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I will contact them Friday, probably. Not tomorrow.
Are you thinking this is going to happen during regular meetings? You think we're going to have extra? You don't know yet.
My hope is that it will happen during regular meetings. I do think that we're going to need to play it by ear to find out
See what happens.
how often our regular meetings will be.
Yes. Thank you.
So, all right, thank you. So next we have approved Ferrisburg MOU.
So, in this past year, several of the individual boards had been working with their town officials to map out some agreements that have to do with land. Addison has an agreement, Ferrisburg's been working with the select board on this agreement, and we also have an agreement in Virgins. So working with attorneys to make sure that the language has the board's best interest in mind has been a long, drawn-out process. So the latest agreement that I received was over this past couple of days after the board received an agenda. So I want to recognize you have not seen this agreement. So I'm going to take the action item off the table tonight. But I do want to have a discussion with you around purpose and what Ferrisburg is trying to accomplish. So I want to invite Laurie to join me and help me as a representative of the Ferrisburg board to help this board understand what this MOU is to accomplish.
Well,
Want me to help?
yes.
Okay.
Because I just feel
So,
as though, you know,
It really has to.
unfortunately, I wish Bill had been here.
Yeah, Bill is the one that's really been the conduit between the select board and the Ferrisburg board. Basically, it outlines or confirms language that's already in the Articles of Agreement that should something happen where the Ferrisburg town school district building is no longer necessary to function as part of this school district, that land would go back to the town of Ferrisburg for $1. So that, in effect, is what has been referred to in the Articles of Agreement, but they wanted to make this much more of a legal document. It is about 3 pages long, and it's the only agreement that asks for 3 entities to have signatures: the Select Board, the School Board, and the new school district. So I would be coming back probably at your retreat after you've had a chance to read this, and maybe I could get Bill to do a summary where we would ask the board to make a motion to allow Sue to sign on behalf of the school district board. But that's basically what it's being asked to do.
We have no problem with the fact it'll be after July 1. This doesn't have
This
to
does
happen
not.
before
No,
changeover.
no. We checked because the select board's actually not meeting until July 3rd, I think July 3rd, so we asked that question, the answer is no. The Ferrisburg board is in legal operations till December 30th, so in effect, they did agree to sign it tonight. I do have that signature, but they didn't have to because they still remain a body that can operate and make decisions until December 30th. But I just realized coming into this meeting tonight, you have not seen this, you haven't read it, so I'm not going to ask you to make a decision on it tonight.
Thank you. George?
I mean, it sounds like Ferrisburg wants an extra layer of protection. I mean, I guess my question is, if it's good for Ferrisburg, why wouldn't it be good for Jens and Addison as well?
The Ferrisburg board actually was surprised that the attorney wanted the school district's signature on this agreement, because that was not the case in Addison when we had that land swap agreement with the town. But he did not work with Addison on that final agreement. It was the town's attorney that finalized it. So I don't think Ferrisburg really has a, they're hoping that you're going to sign this.
But I mean, the land swap at Addison was more a matter of a land swap of some land from the school to a swap for some land from the town. It's essentially an equal swap to kind of clean up a patchwork of ownership in the town center there. I mean, this is a different thing looking forward.
It is different, but again, this has already been referred to in the Articles of Agreement. They just want to make it formal with the town.
Yeah.
And so there's no question about the understanding.
Yeah.
Joanne, if I may, I was on the Ferrisburg board when this all started. And it's just that the select board, speaking for the townspeople, felt that they had a lot of property there. There's a lot of acres.
28 acres.
Yeah, and they wanted to be sure that that wasn't gonna disappear from the town. And in what I saw before I left that board, that all it does is restate what the Act 46 says, that as long as it's being used by the district, then it stays in the district. But if the district says, boy, the student numbers shrunk and we're gonna do it all here in Addison, and we don't need that anymore, then it goes back to the town of Ferrisburg for a buck. They have right of first refusal. Now, if they decide that there's too much outstanding debt involved with the building or the land and they don't want it, then the district gets to sell it. But it's just a redundant protection clause for the voters.
You want to add anything, Lori?
No, I mean, just the fact that, even if the school district doesn't sign it, we can still go forward with it. Because we just signed, the Ferrisburg board signed it, and then the select board signed it, so.
I think there's a legal question there, that if there's another entity signature on here, whether that makes this a legal document if all parties don't sign, but I'm not a lawyer.
So we'll get a written summary and it will come back to us.
Get a written summary, it'll come back either at the retreat meeting or at our next meeting, and we're still within the timeline, so
Okay.
nothing's gonna happen between now and then.
That's good. Thank you. Approved transportation contract.
Excuse
Oh,
me,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just a quick question to the parliamentarians here. Is there an issue with having an action item and not acting? Just curious. I don't know nothing about Robert's
It's
rules.
just tabled.
Should we vote to table
Just
it?
table it.
Always vote to table it.
Vote to table it? Is that,
That would cover it, absolutely.
okay, I'm going to make a motion to table approving the Ferrisburg Memorandum of Understanding to a future meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of tabling that for the next or a future meeting?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okey-doke.
Thank you.
Approved transportation contract.
Okay, so we had an RFP process, clearly defined. We opened one bid. It came from our current bus transportation company, Betcha Transit. They have proposed a 3-year contract with the option for adding 2 more. The contract will be in the amount of $466,735. I knew that someone would ask me tonight, how does that compare to the current year contract?
That's the next question.
And I don't have that information with me this evening because the contract that we had with them up until this year did not include the dollar amount. It included a % increase up until this year, and I did not, Tanya was not in the office today, and I did not do that calculation.
Do you know how it compares with the line item in the budget?
I believe that I believe that it is slightly under budget.
Do you know how they calculate it? Is it based on?
It's based
the
on routes, it's
distances?
based on number of students, it's based on miles traveled.
And that does not include any field trips or anything like that?
They have given us an amount of money that they would charge us for field trips, and includes special education transport. Not all of the special ed transport, but the special education van and local transport.
Things like
So,
late bus.
If,
Late bus,
Does it include late bus?
like the afternoon.
Yeah, yes, it does include, yes.
so if you were to allow some West Ferrisburg students to go to Addison, and you changed a bus route to accommodate that, is that gonna impact this contract?
One of the things that we've asked in this contract is to ensure that the bus company has a GPS system that can help us do better planning around where our students are located and the best way to manage that transport. So I believe that that's going to help us in the long run. We were able to reduce a bus this year in Ferrisburg, and that was just because of ridership. But now we've got another piece of insurance that will help us do this more efficiently. One of the things that I learned this year is that we transport kids that live very, very close to the high school and the elementary school, that if they lived in another district, they would not get transported to school because they have minimum resident locations for which transportation will be available. So going forward, we'll have to be talking about those issues. Does this board want to continue to transport kids in the manner in which we do? Because there's obviously a cost associated with it. But I think the GPS is really going to help us.
Do you have any feeling as to the percentage of students that ride the bus as opposed to those that either in the case of the high school drive themselves, or I know that there is an unbelievable traffic jam that occurs every morning from parents bringing children in?
I don't have that number, George. I do know that the ridership, obviously, in the afternoon is a lot less because of the after-school programs that we provide and the sports and the extracurriculars. But I don't have a percent of how many parents or how many kids get driven in versus taking the bus. I don't.
Just wondered if that might be something that could be surveyed, that we could get a count of who's riding the bus, because as you mentioned at one point in the past, this is not an obligation of the district to provide the buses. And it seems that with the amount that are being transported in personal vehicles, that it would certainly be a way to consider saving some cost if it showed that there was a preponderance of private transportation.
George?
As a parent with two kids, my kids, for example, like to drive in the morning because the bus comes by our house really early, and so they get an extra half hour of sleep. But then depending on the season and sports, sometimes my daughter can drive both the kids home. Sometimes my son has to take the bus, so it really depends. It's not like a fixed or set thing necessarily. So I just wanted to, and that's probably true for a lot of families and kids.
I also think that when you think about reducing the routes, that it becomes an equity issue because parents that can drive their kids will. There are working parents that need to leave the house before their kids get on the bus. And I would not feel that we could make a change like that if it impacted kids in need.
So Joanne, is this figure for 3 years? Each year it's going to be this figure?
It will not be this figure each year. It will go up based on what they call their own formula for CPI.
Okay.
They get that percent from their mother company.
Uh-huh.
And
is there a range or percentage that we'd be looking at each year?
Yeah, they've been increasing anywhere from a 1.5% to 3%. Gas prices also play a role here.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, gas prices seem pretty favorable, but it plays into the formula.
So this is the only offer we have?
This is the only offer we have.
Did we need to get a waiver?
We did need to get a waiver, and so that will play into the board's motion this evening. If you authorize the superintendent to accept this bid, it would be upon the approval of the waiver from the Agency of Education.
Okay.
Can I ask another
So
question?
we need to have a waiver when we only get one bid, because you're supposed
Joanne,
to
do
have
we
two
have,
bids for
do
contract
we have our
service.
own buses as well? Or are
We
they
have a
all-
van.
We have a van.
We have a van that is located at the high school.
That's all now, though, we're all, because at one point, it was kind of half and
The budget
half, or,
amount
Yeah,
for
it's
the
being, right now it's being used mostly for special education transport, students that go to school in Chittenden County. We have a bus driver, we have a driver with a CDL license. And she's been in that position for a couple of years now.
Is there still an after-school or sports bus happening?
The late bus.
Yeah, the late bus, it's still going on.
As long as we only got one bid, can we even consider a 3-year contract?
That's a good question.
What do you mean?
If we're required to have a minimum of 2 bids for something like this, we have to ask for a waiver to accept a single bid, then wouldn't it make sense that it would only be for a 1-year contract and we would request bids again next year?
Was our RFP for 3 years?
Pardon me?
Did we put out for 3 years?
Yes, we put out for 3 years. I don't think we got the bid for 3 years.
How long have we been working with Betcha?
I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that question.
Are there any other options
I don't think there are
in
any
the
other
area?
options.
What it ended up happening is that there at one time was probably about 5 different bus companies in the state of Vermont. Betcha has actually combined
Right.
with some of those bus companies, making it fewer that will respond to
Yeah.
bids.
I mean, we're not going to get a bid from a company that's in Stowe or something.
No.
I mean, they're not.
Is First Student still in operation?
That is Betcha Transit for students.
That is Betcha
That
now.
is Betcha Transit.
I
So-
also push back just a tiny bit on getting the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make much sense to me that Betcha can't count and doesn't already count every student that comes onto a bus every day for every bus.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, I think it's probably in our interest to ask them to do that.
That's, yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why, I mean, like, we're not talking big-time delays
because they have to count the number of students, tabulate those, and get those around. I think that we should ask for more numbers.
We do, did I say that we didn't?
Well, you said you don't have the numbers.
Oh, I don't have them right now. I don't know how many students are transported to
But we
school.
do know those
But we
numbers.
we can, yes, I can
Okay.
get that data.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't think we have a motion on the table. Would anyone like?
Move that we accept the Betcha bid for 3 years for, do I have to say the number?
No, you don't have to say the number, just
Okay.
authorize the superintendent to.
Authorize the superintendent
To accept the
the
bid.
transportation contract. with
Pending the
Betcha.
waiver.
Pending the waiver from the agency.
Pending the waiver from the state.
Agency of
Agency
Education.
of Education.
Good job, Diana.
That was hard.
Okay. Good. So are we ready to vote on this?
I think you need a second.
Tom
Sorry.
seconded.
So, just so everybody knows, if all the transportation expenditures are in the detailed budget that's on the website, and only in the central office budget, it's $502,800. Excuse me. To and from school.
About 40,000.
But there's
right.
also.
Right, there's some in the special ed budget, I believe, that she said was included here too.
Okay.
It would, actually, the special ed budget is separate.
Yeah, so it would be at more than.
That's
is
what I mean,
you're
there's
saying.
an additional amount in the special ed budget.
Correct. And this is just to from school, right?
This is to from school, yes.
So there's another 30, almost 36,000 in the, that's budgeted for vocational transportation.
This
Is
I'm
that-
sorry, this includes vocational. This includes the vocational bus.
So,
Okay.
that's interesting. Okay.
But it doesn't include the special ed.
No,
Not
he's-
all of it.
Yeah,
wait.
okay, so the budget is,
Does.
the budget for transportation to and from and vocational is 537,000, or $538,000. So
And
we've
this
got a
is
little savings, it looks like,
466.
plus the special ed.
Okay.
It would appear there might be some savings there if this is the only expense that
What was
goes
the
into
bid?
that line item.
Yeah.
466. Okay.
Yeah, lots and
But we
lots of field
reduced a
trips.
bus, remember, from the current year, so, and we didn't know that at the time we were building the budget.
All right. Are we ready to vote? Yes? Okay. All in favor of authorizing Joanne to accept this contract, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. If I might ask, is there, how's the have we heard anything about the waiver on the elementary school paving, or no? Okay, how long do they typically take?
I mean, I was told a couple of days, you know.
Okay.
Agency's a little backed up right now, a lot of things going on in Montpelier.
All right, so job description. Tom, you're up.
So, in conversation with Sue over the last couple weeks, we were talking. We started to look. We had been told at some point that there was no job description, and then Glory for superintendent, and Glory found one that Joanne had worked on at some point in the last year as a draft of a rewriting of the previous job description, which goes back to '95. The job description that was sent out for when Joanne was hired is dated very clearly from 1995. So it would seem that it would be helpful to revisit what our job description is, what the job description for the superintendent is, particularly in light of the fact that we're trying to figure out the evaluation at the same time, and that there should this is a document that can be used at least in some ways as a guideline for the evaluation. Before Glory found that document, I had gone through and looked for other districts' superintendent job descriptions. Sue found some, I found some, Harry Frank sent me some. They're very different. Some of them have a lot more detail, some of them have a lot less detail, and they say basically the same thing, but it would seem that it might be useful for us to determine if this is what we want in terms of a job description. I think this is a conversation that has to happen with Joanne at some point. I mean, you know, you should be part of this conversation in what we're doing, but it seems to me that we need to revisit this in some kind of formal way. I suspect the easiest way to do this would be to have an ad hoc subcommittee spend a couple hours reading these and putting something together and putting it forward to the board as a whole. Maybe the policy committee could take that up, but the policy committee's...
We have a policy of our relationship, the board to the superintendent, but that doesn't really...
Well, and actually, one of the things that struck me in reading
what the job is.
The job description that we have right now is it's not very clear about the relationship between the board and the superintendent.
I think there's a kind of a disclaimer at the bottom there that says, you know, this is not all inclusive and there may be other things. I guess my suggestion would be, you know, if we voted earlier to bring a mediator in to help us, you know, maybe they could take a look, because, you know, I'm certainly not an expert on job descriptions. So if we're going to have professional help, I'd suggest we enlist their help.
I think the VSBA has a model job description, which probably might be their way of helping. I don't know. Don't they? Didn't they send you?
Harry sent some stuff out, and he said, and he did not offer his.
Yeah.
He's leaving in 2 days, but he also didn't say, and by the way, for another $1,000, we'll help you put together a job description. I mean,
Right.
I think you're right to a certain extent, but it also seems to me that some of the job descriptions are really clear and helpful, and some of them are kind of vague, and ours is somewhere in the middle.
But they all have the same sort of theme. I mean, I think if some of us sat down and read through them, we would be able to come up with something useful. I don't know that we necessarily need.
Can we just put it up on Google Docs live and start? Everyone can take a look at it and just start messing with it.
Can we?
It seems to me that the evaluation process, you want to have a really clear job description when you're evaluating your superintendent. So those two things really go hand in hand.
Right.
So which comes first?
Well, I mean, a job description is for hiring someone. We set some goals. That's the hard part that I think we have to do. We need to set our goals, and Joe, we need to set up an accountability system that ensures that the superintendent meets those goals, not necessarily the job description for the hiring. Is that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't revisit this, but if it getting in the way of our figuring out exactly what goals we have for the upcoming year and how we'll evaluate those goals, that's a more important question, I think, in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think the purpose of updating it is that the district-wide, we've been trying to, I mean, Joanne tried to has updated most, or if not all, of the central office contracts. We're just trying to make sure everything is current in terms of, I'm sorry, I keep saying contracts, job descriptions. So we're just trying to make sure that everything is current and not from 1995.
Is this something Z could help us with, since she's human resources?
Maybe, in her free time.
I mean, we're paying her.
Yeah.
No, I know.
It sounds like she should at least be involved with us doing this.
I mean, a job description is a framework for how you do your job, you know, so we want to be very clear, I think. And I mean, I agree, having targets for on a yearly basis is one thing, but the overall description is really the foundation of how you go about doing your job.
So we could look into a consultant. We can enable Ask Z for help. We can have a committee. Joanne certainly should have some input. How do we want to proceed? or if we do.
John, is the policy committee, do you think you'd be willing, able to take some time to look at
To
it?
read the job description?
Not to read it, but to create one based on templates and working with Z.
Or would you prefer to have an ad hoc committee?
I don't
We
think
don't,
it's a
ad hoc
policy.
committees are not a
It's not a
thing.
policy.
Yeah.
We can't do ad hoc committees.
What do you mean we can't do ad hoc
There's
committees?
no such thing. That's what the VBSBA woman said last time. They don't exist in Robert's rules. If you're
She's-
going to have a committee of the board, it has to take minutes. It has to have public meetings.
Oh, absolutely. I
So
don't
an
think.
ad hoc committee is, my understanding was that you don't do public meetings and you don't do minutes and.
I don't think.
Maybe I'm
I was taking it to
misunderstanding.
mean as a
I don't think.
short-term.
Is that what you
this
meant,
isn't an
Tom? I think.
ongoing.
Yeah, I think he just meant a temporary committee
Okay.
that we designate and that would have one job and then
Yeah, that's
would
fine.
dissolve.
Okay.
And hopefully 2 meetings.
Right.
2 meetings.
I mean, it seems like there's enough to go on that a group of us could meet and at least put together a starting job description. And then maybe have it vetted by Z or.
Well, I would like to see us meet, whoever does it, meet with her to begin with, because there's probably a lot we don't know.
So we can't establish a committee because we don't have an action item on the agenda. Is that correct, parliamentarians? And if you don't have an action item, I thought you weren't allowed to do motions without having them warned. At least that's my understanding. I mean, I don't care.
Well, we have it's a
It's a
discussion item.
discussion item.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a discussion item because we are discussing how we're going to move forward.
Right, I'm just asking about action items, if we're gonna create a committee.
Well, we don't need to create it tonight, but we can decide if that's the way we want to move forward.
Got it, thank you.
Right. It is-
So it may be taking George and John's comments here, maybe this, assuming that Nicole Mace comes and talks to us about the evaluation at the retreat, then she may say, this is actually something you really need, or she may say, you know what, we don't need this right now, we can push this back. Like, this would be how, yes, in an ideal world, this is a great thing, but, so it may make sense to hear her feedback on this as to whether it needs to be dealt with in the next, month and a half, or whether it's something that we can push back to some point in the future.
So we could wait until the retreat and get some feedback from her as to how and when would be best to proceed.
So might I suggest, if you can put up the various job descriptions you've
Sure.
found up online or in an email or something, and anybody that wants to take a look at them and kind of think
that's a
about
great
it
idea.
can do so.
Sure.
And then put a possible action item on the agenda for the retreat saying we may create a committee depending on, or we may decide that the action item is we're not going to.
Right. Okay. All right. Sounds like we have a plan. Thank you. All right. Another discussion item is a representative to the VSBA Board of Directors. I think that Joanne forwarded all of you an email from Keith Greer, who is currently one of 2 Addison County representatives to the VSBA Board of Directors. He will be leaving his appointment in the fall, so there will be 1 seat open for an Addison County representative to that Board of Directors. The meetings are the second Wednesday of the month in Montpelier from 5 to 8 p.m. So this is nothing that our board would act on. If there was someone on our board that was interested in pursuing this, then you would get in touch with, or Keith can get you in touch with the right folks. So, I think it's a great opportunity. It's also a significant time commitment in terms of travel and stuff, but you had said that you might be interested.
I'm interested, but I'm not going to fight anybody else if they're interested.
And, well, I mean.
Thank you.
Again.
People say thank you.
Again, it's not something that our board would decide.
Yes, right.
And there may be someone from one of the other Addison County boards also interested, so, I mean.
How's it decided?
You're nominated at the annual meeting, I
Yeah.
assume.
I honestly don't know, I didn't get that far in my communication with him, but,
It would be great to have a representative from this board on there.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, talk to him directly? Is that what you're saying?
You can talk to him, or I can talk to him. I think he would tell us the process. I think it's probably that you need to, my guess is you need to submit your name to the VSBA
Okay.
board.
Do you want to head that, then let us take care of it? Would you introduce me and?
Sure. Yep. Awesome.
Can I ask where the current rep is from? Which board?
He's from Middlebury, I believe.
Middlebury.
And I think the other rep is from Bristol, or Addison North, whatever
It's our
their new
turn.
name is. Right.
So it's our turn.
While we're on this subject, there's a new organization that is stepping up to look like the VSBA. Does anybody know about this?
I saw a news report a couple nights ago on them. They were
Apparently
interviewing
there's a clip
two
about it
gentlemen.
on VPR.
Mm-hmm.
Did a program.
Right, but nobody's heard anything about it, right?
Other than on the news, and Diana
Just
sent a
what I
link to
sent
all
out
of
to you,
us.
that's all I
Right.
know.
That was it.
I did look at the website. I don't know if anybody else did, but.
Okay. And do you know anything about it, Joanne? You feel free to communicate?
Sure. This group apparently or allegedly emerged because they were unhappy with the Vermont School Boards Association stance on statewide teacher contracts, health insurance programs, and they are not in support of the School Boards Association's involvement with local control around those topics.
And there's
I think they don't believe in unification.
That's also a related topic. They do not believe in unification.
I think as it's related to local control, like they want
It
to
is.
make sure that their board, their association wants to help maintain local control in the state of all the school, that the school boards maintain local control somehow, yeah.
in the last newsletter from the VSBA, which I think was in my mailbox today, they outlined the reasons why they got involved in the teachers, the contract and all of the issues at the state and what their bylaws are, so that might be helpful background too. But since you're going to be attending the board meetings, you'll be all set. Okay, next meeting agenda items, we're going to do the MOU, have an update on the Child Nutrition Cooperative. Well, that's, yeah.
Do we have a meeting in July? Just
We
a
have
retreat?
the retreat on
Okay.
July 19th from 4 to 8
Yeah.
here, and then the regular board meeting August 14th at 6.
Madam Chair,
Yes, dear?
is there anything we can do about not meeting in the middle of July in this room? Because if it's warm, we're going to be dying.
Sure.
I mean, can't we go somewhere with air conditioning?
Yes.
Somewhere?
Yes.
Please?
Yes.
And can we please have some food?
Yes.
Like some real food?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
I know,
Okay.
am I asking too much? Or she's saying yes really easily?
Just saying it's 8 o'clock.
Both. Yes, George.
With respect to the healthcare legislation, the 80-20 split, which I understand has been mandated, can we get some figures on how that may impact us here?
We're working on that.
They're not actually mandating the split, they're just mandating the savings.
Well, so
You
they're
can come up
gonna
with it
tell us
any way
what
you
our
want.
savings
Yeah.
have to be, in other
They are going to
words.
tell us
Yeah.
what they're not going to give us.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
How much funding they will be withholding.
that'd be good to know.
It would be. All right, anything else?
Well, since you brought up negotiations, sort of, and I know you took it off the agenda at the beginning, executive session, but I just wanted to throw out there that we all received an email from a citizen of Ferrisburg talking about negotiations. I didn't know did everybody see it? And anyway, I just thought it might be, we don't necessarily have to do it today, but it would be great to have a whole board conversation, I think, about negotiations in general. But
Everybody got it?
I think Finn forwarded it to the whole board,
No.
but I'm,
Forwarded it to the Ferrisburg reps.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought he forwarded it to the entire board, I misread
Ferrisburg
that.
taxpayer.
Anyway, it had a lot of things to say,
Okay.
so.
So are we going to talk about that on the next agenda, or is that something we need to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I know you took it off, and I kind of didn't realize at the beginning.
Okay.
So I don't know if we can put it back on to talk about it tonight.
Can we put it
or-
back on? We made an agenda change at the beginning. I don't know if we can.
I mean, by the next meeting, we should have more information about what will happen at the next mediation, so that would go into executive session. We can
Yeah.
cover it then.
I'd say forward it on to everybody and let us read it, please.
Okay.
But I don't think there should be any conversations about.
No, there
well,
absolutely
we can-
cannot
we
be any
can all figure that.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also with the Google Doc, we can't do that either. About putting a job description up. We can't all edit it. It's considered a meeting.
Oh.
Right. But we can look
Send it
at
out
it.
for reading.
We can look at it and take our own notes. We just don't do it in the document.
Okay.
Just send it by email then.
So if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Are we gonna get up and go?
I think we need to leave. All those in favor of entering
Go.
into
Aye.
executive session? Any opposed?
We're going to.
We need to bring Joanne.
Yeah, well, yes, we need a little more clarification, I think, on the motion, actually.
Oh, with the standard wording about
Inviting.
a personnel matter.
And who are we inviting?
Joanne,
Oh, just Joanne?
discussing that.
I believe so.
All right.
Do we have another room we can go to, Joanne?
Oh, do we need to vote?
We did vote.
I thought we did.
Didn't you hear yourself?
Not yet.
We just moved to go into executive, so yes.